Why don't people talk? It's a question we should ask ourselves. And if you think about the process of, let's using word of mouth just as the analogy. Customers got to kind of do two things. Will I talk? Do I actually want to talk about this thing? So that's the first stage. And then if yes, then have to come up with something to say. But you can help them, right? Content strategy is one way to do this. So social media marketers talk a lot about this now, right? It's kind of coming out of the PR side of things, which is, I think, is dangerous. But one of the good ideas from the PR people is content calendars, right? Have a plan in place for what are we going to be posting on Facebook or Tumblr or Twitter or whatever it might be. That's a good idea. So developing a content strategy. The hope is that you use appropriate, relevant, interesting content to actually generate this engagement or these social interactions. Like get people to share it. Right? Shareable content is what people talk about. We don't know what content works best, actually. There hasn't been sort of a Facebook post genome project to sort of figure out what are the characteristics of Facebook posts that work best. So good content is actually not clear. There's a lot of intuition around this, but not much science yet. But this is one way to get people to talk. Put something into their hands that they can then share. Your goal, by the way, shouldn't just be content consumption, getting people to look at it, but it should be getting people to share it, getting people to engage, generate those social interactions. Right? So for social, that's important. The other thing you can do is offer an incentive, whether it's paying or giving people free stuff. Actually makes them write better reviews. So the content is better. It's like they're doing it as a job, and so they take it more seriously. So it's actually better for the people who read that stuff and get influenced by it. But then once you do this disclosure, it backfires and people don't trust it anymore. Right? And so there's this sort of unfortunate catch-22 situation where it's better content, but people ignore it because they just totally discount it because now they have all these doubts in their minds. All right, so if anyone has ever done an influencer campaign or a buzz campaign or a viral campaign, seeding, you'd say, oh, well, we go for these guys called the hubs, the social hubs, right, which would be the dark blue guy in the middle with the most connections. Right, if you get the product into his hands and he tells all of his friends, then we've got the reach right away. Problem is, these guys are rare in social networks by definition. Social networks don't have many of these people. They're often hard to find. Some research that a colleague of mine at Columbia and I did on Twitter actually finds that these people tweet less than everyone else because they're kind of a little bit more careful about protecting their connections and sort of the hierarchical position that they're in the social hierarchy. So they're actually not great to go after. So if you assume we're just going to go after regular customers, maybe one of these other colored dots. All right, let's suppose you go for the red guy, happens to be maybe a loyal customer already, not super highly socially connected, but has some friends. You want this red guy to talk to the blue guy. Right? Hopefully he's going to go, yeah, I'm going to talk to my friend, the blue guy, because once it gets into that guy's hands, even though we couldn't directly target that hub, then there's a chance it's going to spread. You don't want him to talk to his yellow friend who doesn't have any other friends. But that might happen. Right? If you don't think about, well, if we're going to get people to talk on our behalf and share product information, if you don't think about who are they going to talk to, who are the receivers going to be, you might fall into this trap that the word of mouth goes nowhere. So that's where incentives can come into play. So there's, again, some research that we've been working on, and you sort of see this out in the wild also, about how do you communicate, how do you create some incentive, but not a monetary incentive? How do you make it seem more valuable if word spreads? Right? So Gap, this is just last Sunday, a promoted tweet that Gap did that I happened to see. Big surprise, retweet this 1,000 times to unlock it, right? And so it was a surprise, was a deal on a product. Retweeted 1,000 times. Right, I got to share this thing. If I want to take advantage of whatever this deal is, I got to get a lot of people to also be retweeting this. So now there's an incentive to me to get word to spread quickly. Right? It's kind of like what Groupon used to do back in the earlier days of Groupon. Right? You don't unlock the 50% off hot air ballooning unless 100 people buy into it or whatever it might be. Right? Same kind of idea. What it is you're trying to increase the value of, in this case, let's say it's a product or a promotion, increase the value to the person who wants to take advantage of it, but make it a function of how many other people also are taking advantage of it.